Hi, everyone, and welcome to another show of Soulfully Guided. I'm your host, Carmel-Anne. I'd like to basically, as always, thank our network, A1R Psychic Radio and Moonstruck TV, and to you as well for tuning in and listening. So if you haven't been watching, I recommend to go back. We're doing a gifted children series, and we've been doing it for a little while now. And look, today, once again, taking it really breezy and enjoying the space of just comfortably speaking and sharing things from my heart rather than try and script it or memorize it, which it's been a challenge for me, but you noticed the shows run much better from the heart than something that you're trying to perfect. So what I thought I would do today, and I know the topic, I don't know which way it's going to swing, but and how I'm going to share and what I'm going to share, but I wanted to share my story in particular about my gifts and the effects it had on me. It's not always bad. I think if we raise our children understanding who they are and they're not weird and embrace it as a complimenting, quirky, fun, connected, and eccentric in their own beautiful right, because eccentric is a compliment in my world. And I don't, if we can avoid children experiencing being connected with their gifts, because not everyone is and not every child will be, even though we have this this big understanding that everyone has their own gifts and how we connect with it is unique and makes us special in our own right. But as for me, it wasn't a pleasant experience, and I felt like the lack of understanding of myself and what I could do, the lack of knowledge and communication, which we spend a lot of time talking about communication. You see, instead of opening up like I did as an adult, as a child, I shut down. And first, before I shut down my gifts, I shut down my personality. I would switch off in primary school. I was very lonely in primary school. I didn't connect to people. I had very little friends, and I guess being picked last would have been a bonus, but not being picked at all was a real challenge. And I guess if I understood me better, life would have been a lot different, and my childhood would have been a lot more pleasant. Especially in primary school. High school was very different for me. But as I said, there was early on in the series, there was a moment where I experienced an astral travel, an out-of-body experience, and I was able to somehow shut my gifts off. It meant that I was closed to my gifts, but they weren't particularly open to me. So I feel that my gifts underdeveloped me and they made me shut off. I had troubles learning, and only until my first year out of high school, when trauma hit and I realized, oh my goodness, I've at 16 and a half, both parents I'd lost. So trauma did shock the smarts into me and made me, at primary school, I would shut off. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't understand anything, and I couldn't learn. And I feel like my gifts shut me down to the point that I began to develop learning difficulties. And still to this day, there's some basic information that I can't calculate properly, or, basic things. I missed that boat. But in high school, I was able to, in university, I was able to articulate and become really intelligent. And I eventually got psychologically testing, which I fluked my way through to getting, because I was interested to know about myself. And I realized I was a high cognitive functioner. And but still, the things I should have learnt at high school excuse me, which were well beyond me to understand then. And my only thing was to daydream and to lose myself in my gifts, which I didn't want and didn't consider them as gifts. So I couldn't make friends because I felt weird and I didn't connect with people. I was lonely and school lunches were really boring, and I was worried people would know that I could understand what, things that were going to happen or things that a child would generally not connect with or understand. And I've gone through the series to say some of my gifts, and it completely changed the aspect and the direction and the potential that I could have had and the friendships I could have had as a child. And I can't emphasize enough the right communication, investigation. When we encourage our children, it's not to encourage or push their gifts. It's, in a sense, to encourage who they are. And that might enhance their gifts, but the goal is not to say, I want to gift a child, but how do I manage that my child can be comfortable to be themselves and create friendships and social networks rather than having social delays or learning delays within school. And things changed in high school, and I became a little more confident. I seemed really confident, but I began hanging out with cool people, and don't I don't I guess I'm likable, but I never consider myself popular, although throughout, probably from 14 to about maybe to about 30, there were some very popular big groups in my life, and great big popular people and crowds that I hung around with. But I also felt like I got lost in that crowd, and my empathy didn't fit the criteria of popularity. And so high school was amazing. It was fun. I was having friends for the first time in my life, real friends. But I also found myself a floater where I would hang out with people from all different levels. And my group would say, "What are you doing? You come and hang out with us." And I probably still am a floater. And I am connecting with people better, but it's not that I don't give all of myself to people. I do. But also, those essential years in childhood sort of left a mark on me. And while I'm happy and I have some great friendships in my life now, taking it back to the essentials, we can't remove my childhood from my adulthood, even though I'm a completely different person. I was an introvert and now I'm an extrovert, and sometimes I revert back to introvert. So I want to make this experience, if you have a gifted child or a child that is connected with their gifts, as pleasant as possible. And, I, as I started, so there's no denying for me, I became a substance user and there was a lot of trauma involved, and I can't distinguish the beginning of the effects of the trauma, or the gifts that I had, or my own natural personality, because I don't even know what my personality was as a child. I didn't get the chance to discover that. So while I'm happy with who I am today, it took a good 35 years to love myself, to understand that I wasn't normal, and the things that were happening back then, I kind of became spiritual again. Maybe it started happening again at 30 years old. And I eased my way into it, and it was like it fit like a glove, and everything made sense. And I don't want your child to wait, or your loved ones, if they're children, or even adults. I don't want them to wait a lifetime before they get to know themselves and love themselves freely, and not be limited, not let their gifts and what they can do limit them and their quality of life. I was able to overcome the learning difficulties, but not until trauma had really hit. And I thought, oh, I need to make something of my life. And sadly, it went the other way for me, but I was able to correct that. In my life really happened in my 30s. And if it weren't for the man I met and married, it would have been a very, very different story. So I don't know how much percentage to attribute that to, you know, I, trauma, gifted, where did my substance abuse happen? So the line is quite blurred, and there's not always going to be straight, black and white answers. The world is full of color and so much information, and each of us are individual and unique in our own right. So each child, and that's where I say you are the expert of your child. You may not be an expert at spiritualism, and even us talented people aren't always complete experts because we're always learning. But that was my story. I guess, growing up, and there's a lot more detail in between, but it took me a long time to find myself. And I hope that this series can help your child find themselves sooner and be comfortable with that, with who they are, rather than feeling the need to shut down, because it is a wonderful gift to have. But I don't consider the innocence of a child can really understand what they're able to do, and that might shut their personality down, or it might have the other effect for them. And so thank you for watching this series and for hearing a bit of my story. I'll tune in actually next week. We'll be watching a replay because I'm going on a working holiday, which I'm really excited about. And we'll see you the week after with some more informative sessions about being a gifted child.